Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Amplify Your Business. Today, I am joined by Erika Anderson. She is the founding partner of Proteus International, and she's calling in from Spain today. Welcome to the show, Erika.
Thanks. It's wonderful to be here.
Yeah, so we'll get into why you're in Spain, how that all came about as well, because I know you're splitting your time between New York and Spain, which is a fascinating story. But before we do that, let me ask you what I like to ask everybody right at the top of the show, and that is, what are three things that you think every entrepreneur needs to know or understand?
I really like this question because it's easy as an entrepreneur to get like one thing in your one be in your brain and just go. So I do think there are some things. And the first one is to really be clear about what's most important to you.
Okay.
First, about your business, to have a clear vision for the business. Why am I creating this business? How am I hoping to help? What's the point? To be really clear about that, but also to be really clear about yourself and you personally, how you're motivated. Like, I remember I was talking to somebody years
Mm,
ago who was thinking about starting their own business. And he said to me, but I hate selling myself.
yeah,
I thought, well, dude, it's good that you know that, but it's going to make it really hard for you to be an entrepreneur if that's true.
totally.
So that's thing one. And then thing two is kind of related to that story I just told. There's a concept that we often use anyway, in coaching called being a fair witness. And it's something that I
Okay.
stole from Robert Heinlein, Stranger in Strange Land. And I won't tell you the whole story of the book, but in this book, there's a profession called fair witness. There are people who are fair witnesses. And a fair witness in the book is somebody who is trained and then bound by law to only speak either from their direct personal experience or observable data. So
Okay.
they have to be absolutely objective, right? And what I've noticed is that when we're entrepreneurs, we can lose our objectivity really easily and just kind of
Isn't that the
cherry pick
truth?
data, right? Oh no, this is going to work out great because, my mom
Yeah.
thinks it's going to work out great, right? And so
Yeah.
it's very important to be a fair witness about yourself, like that guy was when he said, I don't like selling myself, to be a fair witness about the situation. Is there actually a niche for my product or service? Do I actually have the expertise that I need to offer this product or service? Just really to be objective and accurate, because the person who's going to fool you most, sadly, is yourself. It's gonna be very easy to try and talk yourself into and out of stuff that isn't actually true. So it's really important to get into that fair witness mindset when you're starting out as an entrepreneur, and to keep doing that.
Yeah.
And then the third one is very practical, just to have enough capital. I have seen so many businesses, good businesses, go belly up over the last 40 years because great idea, a lot of motivation, good person, maybe even good, but they just didn't have enough money to sustain them through that first part where you're making everything happen. And that's another place where it's really important to be a fair witness, because it's easy to say, oh yeah, 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 I got enough money to last me for 2 months and that'll be long enough. No.
Yeah, having that runway, right, is so critical. And
Exactly.
you have grown your business, you've scaled up a lot, because how big is your business now? Like in terms
It's
of people?
year to year, it's between $5 and $7 million now, so good
Yeah, it's
size.
so substantial, and you're 20 plus people anyway, I would think, right? So how
32.
32, yeah. Okay, so
Yeah.
32 members. So you've scaled that, and that's what I find is that I was really careful and was able to be on top of things with regard to the capital. It wasn't an exercise that was too complicated until we started to really rapidly scale, and that is where I really struggled, because the amount of capital I needed. And if we had any later payments from some of the clients or
Yeah.
bad debts that were occurring, anything like that, those
Yes.
were just so, so painful in those scaling period of time because it required so much capital that you're putting out there. So instead of that payroll being, $10,000
Yes.
is now $30,000 and so on, right? Like it's just like,
Yeah.
oof,
Yeah.
every little
Yeah,
error
and you
is
have to
amplified.
your point, you have to make sure not to stay. I mean, so what you're spending and what you're making are never going to be exact, but you have to make sure you're not
Yeah.
getting too far out ahead of yourself, unless you
Yeah.
somehow have some deep pocket person who's going to, make up the difference. But
Yeah.
you have to be very um, clear and very intentional about the investment spending that you're doing. And that's where the fair witness thing really comes in handy, because it's like, okay, we're going to get a little bit out over our skis here and we're going to put $50,000 into this thing that we really think will allow us to scale up to the next level. Will it really? What are the odds that that $50,000 investment is really, you have to be, you have to do ROI analysis on your own stuff,
Yeah.
or, you can really get in trouble.
Yeah, completely. And I'm really curious about the witness, the fair witness idea there, because one of the things that I just jotted down when you were saying them, because I always like to take a few notes with it, because I think everybody comes at it with a different
Yeah.
something interesting and new that I can take in. And I've never heard anybody reference this book or this concept before.
Mm.
And I was just thinking, okay, the challenge though in today's world, it seems to be even that much worse, is the echo chamber that we place ourselves into when it comes to our political views, our values, or all sorts of different things. And in business it can be that way as well. So I'd imagine that you must, you have to be quite intentional in order to be able to
Yes.
find a way to ensure that you are checking your thoughts, your ideas, your beliefs, your biases against a fair witness or
Yeah.
maybe a board of fair witnesses. How do you advise companies to really do that, or how have you done that?
It's a wonderful question. So my partners, Jeff and Laird, and I, and now we have a wonderful woman, Marie, who I think in the future will become a partner. Um, we really vet ourselves. Like, I can't even tell you the number of times one of us will say something and another of us, or even sometimes that person will say, is that really accurate?
Hmm.
Or do we just hope that's true? So
Yeah,
there's a
yeah,
lot of just vetting yourself, because you have to make sure that you're using facts. A lot of the craziness that's happening in our world right now is because people just refuse to use facts. But you have to make sure that you use facts. That's the ground. But then you can interpret facts, as you know, in lots of different ways. So you say, okay, so we think, well, we'll use a practical example. We think that our change from the inside out workshop is going to be huge with clients. We think clients are going to love it. Do
yeah,
we? Why do we think that?
yeah,
What
yeah,
actual evidence do we have that that's true? Well, one client really loved it. All right. That doesn't sound like evidence. That sounds like one person's opinion. So, can we ask people? Can we look and see what's being bought in the change space? Can we, take 10 of our clients and say, here's what this workshop is. Would this be interesting to you? Would it be interesting to you at this price point? You just have to gather data
yeah.
and look for data that is not going to, you try to overcome your own confirmation biases and not look for data that's going to reinforce your already pre-existing opinion, right?
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
that's what you
Yeah,
do.
and I like that example that you give, because one of the things that we do as a marketing company for clients is when they're doing that, when they have a new product, a new service, a new offering that they're trying to put in or that they're thinking about developing, what I always try to do is catch them before they've gone through the effort of developing it all, because the market might not actually want it, and so that's one of the challenges is that you do get people's opinions oftentimes where they're like, oh yeah, no, that sounds amazing, right? But the question is, would they actually purchase it? That's
Precisely.
a different question. And some of
That's
them
a
will say,
different
oh yeah, I
question.
totally would. But you put that offer, then you build it all out and you put the offer in front of them, and then it's like crickets, right? And
It was a good idea. Yes,
yeah,
exactly. And one of the things we've done a lot over the years is that much of our IP has been developed because clients were already asking for it,
yeah.
right?
So you're
And so
responding to the market's
exactly,
desires.
responding
Yeah,
to the market's desires rather than just having a groovy idea that you make up in your head. So
yeah,
whatever you can do, and I mean, you're a marketing guy. You can do A/B testing. I mean, there's all kinds of ways you can test,
yeah.
and I've seen so many companies just go over a cliff because, especially when they have some high energy founder who's like, "Trust me on this, you guys. This is really going to work."
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, we're in a situation right now with a client actually that has gone forward and spent a tremendous amount of time developing an app. And I'm really concerned as to whether or not the market is actually going to want it, because I didn't feel that they did enough market research in advance.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
my advice to companies who are listening today who are doing that is actually uh, pitch it to the marketplace as if it's already done, and just
exactly.
run a really, really inexpensive marketing campaign. So the example that you gave, where it's like, okay, so maybe we have a new workshop that we think the
Yeah,
market's going to want. Okay, well, let's create then an ad. Let's create a landing page for it as if it's ready, and let's register people for it. So we're going to run, say, $500 an ad spend, and we're going to
exactly.
just see, okay, how many people are actually going to click through that demonstrates interest. And then from a pricing standpoint, we can determine whether or not we got the price right based off of what percentage are actually registering. Now, they're going to register for something that isn't available actually yet. It hasn't been built out. And so then we respond to those people after that and say, oh, sorry, this actually, we got ahead of ourselves, or there was an error, or whatever we want to say, a little white lie, just saying that we're actually putting this on hold for another few weeks. And then you just build, you work your butt off and build it if the market has
Yeah.
started to buy it, right?
I
And then
think
you
that works
bring those people back.
if it's a thing where the development is pretty quick. We,
Yeah,
I, our stuff has a long development time usually, so we're
yeah,
much more likely to get. We have the good thing is we have many very long relationships with client companies, and particular individual clients that we've related to for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And they're kind of, we call them FOPs, fans of Proteus. So we can go to them and say, what do you guys think? And they'll tell us the truth. One book I wrote, not the last book, but the one before, is called Be Bad First, and it's about how to be a master learner. And
oh,
one of the
okay,
things I talk about these 4 mental skills that are critical to be a good learner, to be a master learner. And one of them is called neutral self-awareness, which is exactly what we're talking about. You have to be accurate about yourself as a learner to know where you're starting from, right? And
yeah,
one of the tools we talk about for neutral self-awareness is having good sources. And how we define that is people who see you clearly, want the best for you, and are willing to tell you the truth.
oh yeah, yeah,
At least the truth as they see it, right? So
yeah,
I think that's absolutely essential for entrepreneurs in all aspects of their business to have some people, whether they're clients, whether they're peers, whether they're friends, who really see you clearly, see you warts and all, really want the best for you, so they're not trying to hurt you, and are willing to tell you the truth. That's
yeah,
big. And
yeah.
if you can have some of those people, they're like silver and gold, right?
No doubt. So now we've kind of danced around a little bit about what it is that you do. We kind of referenced slightly that you have a consulting business and that you're working with a lot of different firms. And so, can you tell us the problems that you're solving over there at Proteus, and I guess what kind of service or offering you're providing to businesses?
Of course, I would love to do that. So our mission, or why we exist, and it's always been the same for these 34 years, is that we make it easier for people to clarify and move toward their hoped for future,
Okay.
individuals and organizations. So we make it easier for them to get clear about what is the future I'm trying to create for myself. And then we have a whole variety of ways of helping them, make that real, make it a
Yep.
reality. And so our offer to do that, all in support of that, we have 3 practice areas. The first one we call coaching. and it's executive coaching. And we coach individual executives and we coach teams of executives to operate better as teams.
Okay.
So, because our belief is, okay, so we can help you get clearer about the future you're trying to create for yourself. And then as a leader, as a group of leaders, become capable of achieving that future by having the right
Mm.
skills, the right mindset, the right capabilities. So that's practice area 1. Practice
Okay.
area 2, we call transformation. And that's more on the organizational level. We have a vision and strategy practice where we work with groups of senior leaders we have a wonderful approach, a wonderful intervention, I guess, that we've been doing for 35 years to help this group get clear about, okay, where are we starting from? What are we trying to get? What's our hope for a future? Where are we trying to get to? What's in the
Yeah.
way? And how are we going to get there to make actual practical plans to get there? So I like to
Okay.
think of it as we make vision and strategy a very practical exercise. The aspiration of vision and then the nuts and bolts of strategies and tactics, right? So that's
And
one of our
and
big.
for that and for that, you dig right into, the strategic business aspects, or is it still
Yes.
more on the soft skills, the people
Oh no,
side?
that's helping this group get very clear and make really clear plans about, okay, so if that's the future we're trying to create, what are the
Yeah.
3 or 4 big superhighways, the strategic paths we're going to walk down, and then tactically, who, what, when, how are we
Yeah.
going to actually make that happen?
Okay.
And then, so that's one of our big offers in the transformation practice. The other big offer is our change management approach. And we have a
Mm.
wonderful change management approach. That was my most recent book. And it's predicated on the belief that even if you're trying to make a change that affects 50,000 people, the way for it to be successful is to have the greatest possible number of people make that shift mentally and emotionally in their heads to where they're okay with the change. We call it the
Mm.
change arc. Go through the natural human resistance, hesitation to get to the point where they're like, oh, okay, I can see how this could be good. And then we
Yeah.
have a 5-step process for kind of cascading that individual shift through the whole organization. So
Excellent.
our accelerating change process. So change from the inside out. And then the third offer in that transformation area is just process improvement. There
Mm.
are so most companies have just terrible processes and they really get in the way of creating whatever future, whatever thriving, whatever growth you want. So we do
Yeah.
a lot of work looking at that. And then the third practice area is leadership development. And we do management and leadership training. And what I think distinguishes our approach to management and leadership training is it's very practical. And
Mm.
it is what people call soft skills. It's listening and feedback and coaching and delegation and building strong teams. So a lot of them are interpersonal skills, but we approach it in a very practical way. So it's not
Mm.
just you should listen. It's literally how do you listen better? Like how
Yeah.
do you build a cabinet? It's an actual skill, and you can get better at it, right?
Yeah.
So we do. So that's what we do in the leadership development. We have courses in all the areas I just talked about, and then in those just core management and leadership capabilities and mindset shifts that people need. So that's our
Yeah.
drill. And we have
That's awesome.
yeah, it's wonderful. We have uh, between 25 and 30 consultants, mostly in North America, but we have one in South America, a couple in Europe, and then a small, wonderful, high level staff that supports everything. So,
Now, I talked about at the very beginning when I introduced you that you're calling in today from Spain. And
yeah,
so this is a business that you founded in the US and you've
yeah.
grown it there. And now for the last half a decade or so, I suppose, hey, you've been spent a lot of time over in Spain yourself personally. So tell us why you're making that shift over there. And then I want to get into the impact that it's had on your business and how you're operating your business from another continent as well.
So it's a very complex question, but I always try and reduce things to their simplest parts.
Great.
So I'm just about to be 72. So when I turned 65, I said to my partners, okay, you guys, now I'm cutting back to full time. right?
I love
I'm
that.
going to
Yes.
start only working 40 hours. And then over the next, and then I said over the next 3 or 4 years, we'll figure that out. But then really, as I get towards 70, I want to back out. I want to, as I said to you earlier, in Spain, the word is semi-jubilada, which means semi-retired. I don't think I'll ever not want to do this at all, but I want to really pull out. I want you guys to manage the company day to day. I don't want to sell by the time I'm 70, 71. I don't want to be selling. I don't want to be delivering to clients. I want to be the internal support. I'll advise
Yep.
you guys, I'll write, I'll do special projects. So we've spent the last 5 years making that transition. And we didn't start spending a lot of time in Spain until about 2 years ago. So it worked really well. While I was still, you know, working with them to run the company day to day, while I was still selling, working with clients, I was in America, in the US. And now that I'm not doing those things, it's very easy for me to do the things I'm still doing with Proteus vast majority of the time, like this online.
Yep.
So, and I think I'm very proud of us. I think we've done a really good job of making my shift as minimally disruptive to the company as possible,
Yeah.
which is
So
a lot. And, I'm the founder and I wrote all these books and blah, blah, blah. So it's good that it's working.
yeah, it is like for you to say, you know what, as we're still in the middle of this, but what we've done thus far seems to have worked really well. I'm just applaud you for that because this is a really, really difficult thing. And I know there's a lot of people who are in our audience right now thinking about that transition themselves. I, for one, have that on my horizon in the not too distant future as well. And so I'm really curious the advice that you would give to people who are thinking about doing something similar. How do you advise somebody to transition? What advice would you give through that? I imagine nail your systems, what you were talking about before in terms of the process. Make sure that your business has the processes in place. That's got to be a core one. But there must be a few other things that you've learned
Yeah,
along this journey yourself that you could share with us.
absolutely. So the foundational one for me is make sure that you really trust your partners, that your
Yeah.
partners and
Okay.
you really trust each other, that you trust each other's, like in speed of trust, that you trust each other's competence and that you trust each other's character. Because when I've seen it not work well for a founder to pull him or herself out, that's one of the main things that doesn't work is they don't real off, and usually it's the founder. They don't really trust the people to whom they're giving the business to run it. And so then they leap back in and they second guess and they do all that kind of stuff. So you really, really have to make sure that you trust whoever's going to be you after you're not there, that you trust both their character and their competence. I would say that's
Yeah.
my foundational advice, and really be a fair witness about that. If you
Yeah.
if you think about, okay, I'm going to be in Spain, I'm not going to even come to this yearly meeting that they're having. Is that cool with me? Do I feel like they'll do a good job? And if you can honestly say yes, great. And if you can't, then you got to figure that out, right?
Yeah, totally.
That's thing
So
one.
yeah. So you have a few more though?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Okay.
then thing two is be very, very, very clear about the roles and how the roles will shift. I've seen founders also just kind of, this one guy especially, he was the worst. There'll be no way that you'll know who he is, but he was just like, oh yeah, 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 I'll just be kind of chairman. You be the president, you be the CEO. It's fine. It's fine. We don't really have to worry about it. It'll be good. That is just a recipe for disaster. Just be very clear. Okay, so a year from now, when I'm only working 20 hours instead of 50, what am I going to be doing? How's that going to be working? What are you guys going to do instead of me? Who's going to do it? Are you guys going to do it? Are you? And make sure that you as the founder don't try to dictate everything. That you can say, okay, this is what I feel comfortable doing. What do you guys feel comfortable doing? How are you guys going to pick up my slack? How are you guys going to fill in for the things I'm not doing? So that
Yeah.
it's a very clear collaborative process. So that's thing
Yeah.
two.
Okay.
And then thing three is just keep checking in. I mean, I'd probably say Laird and Jeff and I now are at a point, this seems so wonderful to me. We have monthly partner calls. Once a month, we have partner calls. I talk to each of them weekly, but we have monthly partner calls. And on pretty much every one, I say, okay, you guys, should I be doing anything differently? Is there anything you're worried about? Is there anything that I did that was really good that I should keep doing? And here's my feedback to you guys. Just keep that feedback live. Because, if something starts to run off the rails, if you catch something right here, it's easy. If you catch it down there, it's already crashed into something, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm just wondering about, like, so that's checking in with the partners, but do you
Yeah.
also have to do some internal checking in too? Because this is new ground for you as well. And so you might be thinking that you're going to be very happy giving away this aspect
You
or
are
offloading
wonderfully
this.
insightful, Lance. That's the biggest thing. In fact, you'll think this is funny, I think. So the book I'm writing now is about how to get old well
Okay.
and and how to create the later life that you want, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And a big part of it, one of my principles in this book that I'm writing is be the boss of your life, especially as you get old. Don't give up, don't drift. And part of that is create a clear vision for the future, for this latter life that you want to create for yourself. And for me, I was trying to, eat my own caviar, practice what I preach. So for me, it's been exactly what you talk about. I think a lot about who am I now? Who do I want to be when I'm 75, when I'm 80, when I'm 90? Given, I mean, that I might not be alive, but if I'm alive, what do I want to be doing? How do I want to be spending my life? What impact do I want to be having on my family, on people around me, on the company? I think that's absolutely essential. And again, the founders that and not just founders, but entrepreneurs of all stripes who I've seen have a really hard time making this particular transition. The ones that seem to have the hardest time are the ones that do the least self-reflection,
Yeah.
who either assume, oh, no, 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 it'll be fine, or who try and just keep operating like they've been operating since they were 30,
Yeah.
or just avoid it somehow. You got it. It requires courage. Anything new requires courage, right?
Well, and it doesn't surprise me that somebody who teaches and helps and consults with all these businesses with setting their vision and making sure that they have the right plan, the roadmap to achieve that, that you are doing that. But I think that there's a lot of entrepreneurs that will probably think about, yeah, I need, and they understand the need for that within their business, but they probably sometimes forget about the need for it in their life, right? In terms of that vision.
100%.
And so I really liked what you were saying there, where you were talking about, you know, like leading your life, and not letting life lead you, essentially, right? Is the
Yes.
flip side of that. And that's the problem I think that we get when we're in any of those transitions. But definitely, I think when we transition out of our business, and then it's like, okay, so now what? Oftentimes
Yes.
people just kind of let life take them as opposed to the other way around.
Yes. Oh, that's a great way to put it. I think that's exactly right. And one of the things that I encourage people to do, and that I'm writing about in this book, is if you've decided that you don't want to or can't work in the way that you've been working, and you want to go in a different direction, you want to lead a different kind of life. One thing that I think is really important to do is think about what has it been in your work life that you have most loved,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that you've been most excited about. I read this great article, I think, kind of about this, and it was this guy who was a big executive in some company, and he decided to retire, and he thought about all the practical stuff. Do I have enough money? Where am I going to live? But he realized once he retired, he didn't think at all about exactly what we're talking about. And so he did a lot of self-reflection. He realized that the thing that he had most loved in his whole career, independent of what job he had, was learning new things. He loved learning new things, almost
Mm,
independent of what they were.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
denouement of the article was he went back to school, and when he was 86 years old, he got his PhD in some crazy thing like microbiology, just because it was so much fun to learn this whole new thing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
was a teaching assistant. I mean, it just was having a hell of a good time, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's critical for anybody, especially since most of us as entrepreneurs and founders were so identified, right, with our business and what
Completely.
we do. So to
Yeah.
take that step back and say, what do I really love about this? And for me, I'll use myself as an example. My personal mission is very aligned with Proteus's mission. My personal mission is to help people become who they want to become.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I'm going to be doing that until I fall down, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So now I'm finding many other ways to do that than now that I'm working, 4 hours a day or 3 hours a day with Proteus versus 12 hours a day. It's like, okay, what are other ways that I can help people become who they want to become? Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Completely. Yeah. You can tackle that one in so many different potential directions. Yeah. I'm curious. You've been at this business for quite some time. How many years now with Proteus?
34 years.
34. Okay. And you've worked with a ton of different entrepreneurs, a ton of different businesses. What has been, and then now you're in this transition phase that's happening right now. What has been in that span the biggest challenge that you have faced? Whether that was in an earlier stage of the business or maybe it's now. What was or is the biggest challenge that you had to face?
I think for me, anyway, I can't speak for anybody else, but for me, the biggest challenges are always, and I can think of two specifically, where you think, pardon my French, holy crap, this might just blow up now, right?
Yeah.
And the first time I experienced that was in 1992. So it was only 2 years after we started the business. And we had a 2-month period with no income,
Yeah.
no income.
Yeah.
And at the time, I had this fledgling business. I was the primary breadwinner of my family with two little kids. And it was such a, okay, what am I doing here? And for all the things I started at the beginning, what's most important to me? Let me really be a fair witness about what's happening. What do I need to do now? And it was clear I could say, okay, let's just give it up and I'll go find a regular job. But if I want to move this forward and try, what do I need to do now? What's most
Mhm.
important? What's most urgent? What's most critical? What resources do I need? So there's a kind of when you come to those challenging moments, there's a kind of a stop and really think deeply about the most uncomfortable things and then decide what your path is and commit to it. So that was the first one, and I don't think I had one that was that difficult again until the pandemic, when
Yes.
in
Yeah.
March or whatever it was, April of 2020, Laird and Jeff and I sat down and said, okay, what are we going to do,
Yeah.
and we did that same thing of stop, craft a vision, move toward it. And what we decided at that time was that the three most important things we wanted to do are continue to help our clients, do the best possible we could by our folks, especially the folks that, were employees and worked for us, and not go bust.
Yeah.
Those were our three, goals during that. And we did okay. We did fine. We came through it.
Well, yeah, you're here today, right? I mean, so you
Exactly.
definitely did. Going back to 1992, when the first major
Yeah.
challenge there that you referenced, where do you get the strength, or where did you get the strength to then persevere through that? So it's one thing to say, you know what, I sat there and I figured
Yeah.
out, I
Yeah.
reevaluated my vision, the values, the direction. I planned, and I decided, yes, I'm going to commit. I'm going to keep on moving here. But where did the strength come from?
Ooh, that's a wonderful question. Well, part of it, and I don't know how helpful this is, but part of it is just um, my original business partner, who I haven't talked about, who helped me start the business and then let me buy him out after a couple of years. He just wanted to help me get started. he used to say this great thing about that the best mindset is to be confident without being cocky.
Mm,
And he told me that he said, you have that in spades, Erika. You're really confident in yourself, but you're not cocky. It's not a confidence that's based on nothing. You're confident and you know what you have to be confident about. And at that time in 1992, I felt like I know we have a good product. Clients have wanted it. We've done this for 2 years. I think we're just in a rough spot right now. And I know what I need to do. I need to really focus on selling right now. And I can do that. And I think I know how to make that work. So that's what I'm going to do. So it's that I wasn't like, yeah, sure, it's fine. I'm not going to have any problem. But I felt, there was that, it was that kind of confidence, and it was a fact based confidence. I know who I am. I know what I can do. I know what I need to do. Let's do it. And also,
yeah.
it really helped that my backup plan was pretty, I mean, I was pretty confident that I could go get a job
You
making
were
more
employable.
than
Yeah.
nothing, you know. So that was my backup plan, and that felt pretty good. But yeah,
Yeah.
just a kind of solid confidence that you have to be an entrepreneur, or you'll just kill yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
you have that.
Yeah, no, it's very true, and I think for a lot of us entrepreneurs, there's stubbornness oftentimes that we're too
Yeah,
damn stubborn to give up as well,
yeah.
which is a quality, but it can also be a little bit dangerous too. But
It
I
can
really
be,
like,
but I want to pick up on that because I love it. That kind of stubbornness that people call it resilience. It has to be modified by fair witnessness, because some people
yeah,
are just stubborn all the way down off the cliff, right? So
to the core.
you have to at the same time say, okay, but am I being realistic?
Yeah,
Stubborn is great, but if I am just throwing good money after bad, that's not that's not the right approach.
yeah, yeah, totally. So now, if you could send a letter back in time to your younger entrepreneurial self, and maybe it's 92, maybe it is just a few weeks ago. I'm not sure, but any point in time, you could send a letter back in time. What would you say to yourself? What advice would you give you?
I would say be kinder to yourself, Erica. I tend to be a pretty hard grader, of
Yeah,
myself. I'm a much
yeah,
harder grader of myself than I am of other people. So be
yeah.
kind to yourself. Be as kind to yourself as you are to your friends, I would say to myself. I've
Okay.
always tried to, that's a self talk thing. We talk to ourselves badly. And so I remind myself to do that. And just keep taking a long view.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, isn't that the truth in today's world? It seems like, and I see this amongst a lot of new entrepreneurs, where the timeline in which they're thinking they're going to achieve certain things
Yeah.
is way more compressed than what it used to be, and what historically we would think that it would take us to get there. There's this instant, I don't know if it comes from the instant gratification drivers of our world and our personal lives and so on, but it definitely seems to be happening more and more in the business world.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is so true, right? Like
Yeah,
it's
I really agree with that, Lance. And I think there's a couple of reasons why. I think one is that everything is faster. Everything just keeps speeding up. And, if you have a new thing, competition other people can get it fast. It's all faster. Everything's faster.
yeah.
But, and so that's true. And we probably all have to operate faster than we did 30 years ago. But the problem is that the stories we tell and the stories we hear about entrepreneurism tend to pretend that things happen instantly, and we all know that, like, an actor who's a quote unquote overnight success, that person's probably been taking auditions for 10 years before they got
Yeah,
their first big break, right? So
that's
we
right.
don't hear that part of the story.
Yeah,
So just that's what I mean by take a long view. Remind yourself that there's a lot that you've done to get here, and there will be a lot that you'll do. And this particular thing that's happening right now, don't make it like the biggest thing that ever, just take the long view, right?
yeah, yeah. Great advice. Well, I love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing that and all the rest of your insights, Erica. It's been a real pleasure to have you here on the show today. And if somebody wanted to connect with you, where do we send them?
Oh, I would send them to a variety of places. You can see me or Proteus on LinkedIn. I'm just Erika Anderson on LinkedIn. You could go to the Proteus website, which is good, which is proteus-international.com, or my website, which is erikaanderson.com. And there's a lot of, synchronicity between the two.
And your books, I'd imagine we'll be able to find them on Amazon or where?
Yes, they're all on Amazon. And also you can find them there's a resources tab both on the Proteus website and on the Erika Anderson website. So.
Great. Great. Well, thank you so much again. And for those of you who are listening today and really enjoyed this episode, you want to check out some other entrepreneur stories, head over to amplifyyourbusiness.ca. You're going to find Erika's as well as everybody else's, past and future. So check it out. And of course, if you haven't subscribed already to your favorite podcasting platform to get the latest shows, definitely do so. Just search Amplify Your Business. You're going to find us there as well. Until next time, everybody have a prosperous day. And thank you once again, Erika.